Well, hello. Welcome to the Imago Nutrition Podcast, where we answer your questions and give you some practical nutrition strategies to help you reach your goals. I am Danielle Glesney, one of your co-hosts with Mark Glesney. Speaking of practical strategies, today is a very practical topic. So if you have a weight loss goal, but can't stand the thought of counting calories, or you've tried counting calories in the past and it was very frustrating and not helpful to you, this is definitely an episode for you. So we are going to be answering the question, how do I lose weight without counting calories? So Mark, would you like to get us started?
Yeah, hello. This is a great question, one we get often. And so I've got 10 tips that, I've used over the years to varying degrees with weight loss clients. And so let me set it up in two ways. With one is saying, let's make sure that we don't drag negative connotations into quote unquote counting calories. I think they have a negative connotation. It seems to be something that sounds like punishment or, wow, I've been bad or I'm on a diet, therefore I count calories. I like to tell people that there's nothing inherently wrong with tracking calories. It's a lot like having a financial budget that you track all your money in, all your money out so that you can put it to work toward your goals. So counting calories or tracking nutrition, as we say, can be the same thing. I also liken it to a learning environment. Right? It's sort of like you put yourself into a classroom, whether that's high school or college or postgraduate degree, not because you want to stay in that classroom the rest of your life, but because you want to learn some practical theories. You want to learn some techniques. You want to learn some tried and true practices and then take them into the real world, right? And go make money. Okay, to continue with the financial analogy. And so tracking nutrition can provide that learning environment. And so as you track your nutrition, there's lots of free calorie counting apps out there these days, is learning portion sizes and caloric, load within food and learning what a real serving of peanut butter looks like, which is crazy, by the way. It's so small. It's sad because I know how much you love peanut butter. But so all that's to say, tracking nutrition really is just, a learning environment. You don't have to do it all year round. You don't have to do it for the rest of your life. You don't technically have to do it to achieve your goals. But I have seen that as a very, very effective tool for people to get from point A to point B or from where they are to where their goals are in a healthy way. So all that's to say, counting calories, we're not saying that counting calories is bad, therefore don't do it. If you enjoy it, and by the way, I do have several clients, lots of clients over the years that absolutely love it, right? And it's not neurotic or anything like that, but they just find it fascinating. I personally go through seasons where I track my nutrition very tightly and then other seasons where I don't. And so just release yourself from a bit of perhaps the burden of what quote unquote counting calories may mean or the connotations that may come with it. It can be very healthy. However, I also hear this a lot too, which is frustrated, done it, don't like it, it's burdensome, et cetera, et cetera. And we could talk through those issues if someone has some of those concerns. But suffice it to say, it's a very valid question, right? Like, okay, if I don't want to track calories, Mark, what are some ways I can create success on my weight loss journey without counting calories? So that's what we're going to talk about. And I should say at the top too, keeping in mind that even if you do all 10 of these things, but you're not in what's known as a negative energy balance where you consume fewer calories than you expend on average over time, you won't lose weight. Okay. That is the only way the human body loses weight. If you want more on that, we do have an article on our website. Just go to Imago Nutrition, imagonutrition.com/articles. Scroll through those articles. You'll see an article. I think the title is something like, what is energy balance and why does it matter? Okay. And that will explain energy balance. But again, suffice it to say, if you are not in a negative energy balance, on average, over time, it doesn't matter what food you eat, what technique you deploy, how much water you drink, how much you sleep. It doesn't matter any of those things. It's a simple law of thermodynamics that your body must be in a negative energy balance in order to lose weight. Okay. So with that, how do we generally help people establish a negative energy balance more intuitively if they're not going to be tracking calories? Okay. So that's really kind of the presupposition there. So I've got 10, just 10. All right. And there might be some sub-points. We might go off on little tangents here and there, but we'll try to keep things moving. So number one, I would say, is include protein in every meal. Now, this is not bro science. This isn't gym science. This is not, we want everyone to be a bodybuilder. Neither of us are bodybuilders. Okay. Okay. But what we have seen is in the research, we've seen that protein is more effective than carbohydrates and fats, right? So the three main macronutrients, carbs, fats, and protein. Of those three, protein is more effective at keeping you feeling full or satiated. Okay. So protein fills you up. All right. And what happens is if you have protein with every meal and you're more full, guess what you might end up doing? Consuming fewer calories overall. Okay. It's not magic. It's not protein every meal causes weight loss. Only a negative energy balance causes weight loss. However, what we've seen is that practically, if you're including in every meal and perhaps every snack is protein, whether that be an animal-based source of protein or a plant-based protein, your body stays fuller longer, right? Therefore, you naturally feel the need to consume fewer calories over time. Okay. And another side note is that of those three macronutrients, here's a cool fact. Between protein, carbs, and fat, protein has the highest, what's known as TEF, the thermic effect of food. Essentially, when your body digests nutrients like carbs, fats, and protein, it requires a certain amount of caloric burn. It needs to burn a certain amount of energy in order to digest those, right? And so think about a car. In order for your car to, quote, digest that gas, it has to be on, right? And so one of the things that happens within your metabolism is that it cranks up a bit to break down those nutrients. That's a good thing. It's a healthy thing. It happens every time you eat anything, by the way. However, we have seen that your body requires more calories burned to digest protein than it does fats and carbs. Okay. So fun little trick is that that's one way you can begin to ramp up metabolism in the digestion of food. Okay, so number one, I would say, is include protein in every meal. And if you do snacks, every snacks. And if you're looking for, okay, what foods are those? Glad you asked. You could head over to Imago Nutrition. Again, imagonutrition.com/free. And we have 2 resources available right now. There will be more, in the coming months and years. But there's 2 right now. One is a starter grocery list, which has a list of all the, not all, of a lot of nutrient-dense foods. And included in there is things like lean cuts of meat, seafood, low and non-fat dairy options. And that's where you're going to get a lot of that protein. And then the second one is a healthy breakfast ideas, which is ideas for breakfast that are both high or are either high protein and or high fiber. And we'll talk about fiber here in a second. So that's my number one, is include protein in any meal. Any thoughts on that, Danielle?
Yeah, I would say the meal that's most challenging for most people would be breakfast for protein with breakfast. Because if you think about your breakfast foods, they're all carbohydrate based. So, and also try to think outside of just eggs. If you want to think about your cholesterol, your heart health, plant-based proteins for breakfast could be like a quinoa bowl. You could put black beans, in the quinoa bowl. You could do dairy as your source of protein. Low fat or non-fat dairy is very low in cholesterol, and that could be a good source of protein. Or nuts, nut butters. I like to put almond butter in my oatmeal or peanut butter on my banana. So there's lots of different methods. You just have to think outside the box. So
totally. And I'll give you an example from my breakfast this morning. So fun little tip. So I'm in the habit right now of doing a Greek yogurt bowl in the morning, kind of a parfait. So what I do is a non-fat Greek yogurt, plain. Okay. Then I add oats to it. So I do old-fashioned 100% whole grain oats. I did a whole ton of blueberries this morning, like basically your berry of choice. Choose any berry you love, dump it in there. I love it so that there's berries in every bite. That's how I do it. And then I also top it with chia seeds. Right. I call it kind of my 4 pillars bowl because we teach 4 pillars of nutrition, and that has all 4 there. But all that's to say that wasn't eggs, it wasn't turkey, it wasn't bacon, right? That was that Greek yogurt source of protein. And then it had the host of other nutrients from the other ingredients. So all that's to say, you're right. And that is why we've got that healthy breakfast ideas document, because that is something that people struggle with a lot, is hitting protein and fiber first thing in the morning. So that document will help.
Awesome. Yeah. So what's the next tip you have for us?
So number 2, I would say, is include veggies in every meal. Okay. Now, this is sometimes hard in the morning. I'll admit, vegetables for breakfast is not always the greatest. I would say you can also think of veggies and fruit, right? That's the second pillar in our 4 pillars is fruits and veggies. But think about including vegetables in every meal. Okay. So vegetables, of course, are often high in volume. They're called voluminous foods, right? Lots of volume. I think you've used an example in the past of like having to eat like 2 cucumbers versus like, like a handful of, or a small bag of chips or something like that. It's like the same calories, but you wouldn't be able to eat 2 cucumbers.
Right.
Right. It's just a ton. And there's just like so few calories, right?
It's actually 2 whole cucumbers, 2 whole beefsteak tomatoes, too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Not going to happen. And that's for like one little bag of chips.
Yes. For one snack sized bag of chips.
So just think about the practicality of that, right? If your body is full, like literally full of matter, it doesn't matter that it's lower in calories. You're going to feel full. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's what we call voluminous foods, right? Vegetables are very voluminous. Fruits are in some respect as well. So vegetables high in volume, low in calories. And again, that means that it fills you up for fewer calories. Now, does having veggies in every meal cause weight loss? No, but what it does is it tends to fill you up, keep you full longer, therefore consuming fewer calories over time. Okay. Not to mention vegetables, of course, come packed with vitamins and minerals. And perhaps most importantly, something near and dear to our heart is they're chock full of fiber, right? And so fiber is a carbohydrate that passes through your body undigested. It has a whole host of health benefits that we've gone into in other episodes, but suffice it to say, it has a wide array of positive, both short and long-term health outcomes. So that's number 2. So if number 1 is include protein in every meal, number 2 would be include vegetables in every meal. And again, a lot of that comes down to fiber, which of course also fills you up, keeps you fuller longer. Therefore, it has a tendency to put people into a negative energy balance because they consume fewer calories over time. Thoughts on that?
I guess the only thing I would add is just veggies can taste good for breakfast.
Really? I've never done. Give me an example, because I don't think I've ever done veggies for breakfast.
Okay, spinach is great for breakfast. Spinach is great for. You could easily put spinach and egg whites together. I have a spinach casserole that my son loves. It just has a little eggs, spinach, and cheese. You could do like just leftover roasted vegetables from dinner. Throw that in like a quinoa bowl or a barley bowl, or also, again, you could incorporate some eggs or an omelet. So yeah, I think I have a sweet tooth, so I typically do gravitate towards the Greek yogurt bowl or whatever. So I am trying to improve my savory choices for breakfast, but yeah, they can taste good. I took a picture of my breakfast this past weekend. It was a barley and had butternut squash and Brussels sprouts roasted, and a little over easy egg and cheese on top. So
nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll get better.
What's number 3?
Number 3, very practical as well, as I would say, increase your water intake. And so in general, the guidelines for Americans, if you're an adult male or an adult female, for females, it's 91 ounces is kind of a starting point. And don't assume you're hitting that because you've got your mug at the office and you think you do 91 ounces. A lot of times when people think they do, we really don't. And then for guys, it's 125 ounces, which is basically a gallon, because 128 ounces is a gallon. And so increasing your water take, whether to that level or above and beyond, based on activity, one of the many, there's a reason that water is the foundation of life in biological, terms, right? But one of the many benefits and very practical benefits of water is that it can act as an appetite control agent. Okay. And so as you hydrate your body, a lot of times you'll see that it is satisfied in a different way than it is when it is dehydrated. And so a couple practical ways you can do this, first thing in the morning, have a nice tall glass of water, drinking a full glass of water before each meal, and then sipping another glass of water throughout the meal is also a very effective, very practical strategy. And again, this does not cause weight loss, right? So drinking water doesn't cause weight loss. I'm going to maybe say this every time. But what it does is it helps you feel more full, therefore sometimes it causes people to consume fewer calories overall. And again, you begin to then establish a negative energy balance without counting calories. So increase water intake. I would say for females, 91 ounces minimum, for men, 125 ounces minimum per day is probably the third way that I would establish a negative energy balance without counting calories. Thoughts on that? It's pretty square.
That's great. Yeah. It will take a little time for your body to adjust. You won't be going to the bathroom all the time. When you first start increasing that'll happen. For my husband, it was helpful for him to just get a new water bottle that actually kept it cold. So then he is drinking way more water now that he has a good water bottle.
That's an investment.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I think that's like a whole trend. I think like the whole Stanley thermos water bottle thing is like a whole trend now that people, it's a status thing. So go get you a status thermos or something. I don't know. That's very cool. So yeah, and don't feel weird. And I've worked with several clients over the years. I mean, I've worked with construction workers. I've worked with military people, right? People that have very unique schedules. And so I worked with a crane operator one time, and he's like, Mark, I can't do 100 ounces in a day. He's like, I'm in a crane sometimes for 4 or 5 hours at a time. I can't be going to the bathroom every 20 minutes. So I said, okay, what time do you go to work? He's like, well, I'm on the job site no later than 6. So what time do you leave? He goes, usually 2 to 3-ish is when I leave. I say all right, sip normally throughout the day. Maybe start your day with some water. You're going to have a lunch, right? Just sip normally throughout the day. And then when you get home, just get after it. And that's what he did. He just started like 3 o'clock. He started, and he would try to finish by, I think if I remember, this was a couple years ago, he tried to be done basically by the end of dinner, and allow that to work itself out so it didn't interrupt his sleep. But even if you've got schedule considerations like that, there's really no reason to not find a way to work more water into your day, whether you're at an office job, construction job, military job, anything like that. So focusing on water can be incredibly important for a lot of reasons, not just, what we're talking about in terms of losing weight.
Right. And what is number 4?
Number 4, this is a fun one. I would say limit processed foods. Okay, so processed foods or ultra processed foods, hyper palatable foods, been manufactured. We're not against that necessarily, but what we do know is that they're often much higher in calories and they're not as satiating. 1, because they tend to not have adequate amount of protein. 2, they tend to not have adequate amount of fiber. Those things are generally pulled out because they're expensive, and some other considerations in food manufacturing. But suffice it to say, processed foods don't fill you up and they're easier to overconsume. I've referenced this study several times. There was a study done, again, I believe 2021, where they took a group of people. In the first half of the study, they said you can eat as much as you want. They gave them access to processed foods. Second half of the study, they said you can eat as much as you want. They gave them access to unprocessed foods, mostly whole foods. Come to find out, they consumed 500 calories less per day when they were consuming whole, natural, nutrient-dense foods. They were losing a pound a week like clockwork, simply because, and they could eat as much as they want. But like we were talking about, they were more satiated, they were more full, they didn't feel the need to overconsume. So they ended up naturally consuming fewer calories, which is probably the most powerful argument. And perhaps this should be my number 1 tip, right? Instead of number 4. But limiting your processed foods doesn't mean you can't have them, doesn't mean you can't have your fun foods or your sweet treats here and there. But by and large, 85, 90, 95% of the time, if you're consuming kind of whole, natural foods, you're going to consume fewer calories. Oh, and I do have the PMI of that study. Sorry. So if you Google PMID and then the number 31105,044, you can read that study that I was talking about, where they basically, again, they showed that when people are free to eat as much as they want, they consume fewer calories when they consumed unprocessed foods. So that would be number 4, is limit processed food intake. What are your thoughts on that?
I love that. Here's just one simple swap. So chips, obviously, is a processed food. So roasted chickpeas or fava beans, yes, they have some flavoring added. Yes, they're roasted, so a little bit of oil, but they're a bean. So obviously you're going to have some protein, some fiber,
yep.
And I think they taste good. You do have to find a brand that you like. So I really like Bada Bean, Bada Boom, and Buena. Buena is the chickpea bean that I like. And if either of those companies are listening, feel free to send us a sponsorship check, right? That's right. So,
very cool.
What is number 5?
Number 5, I would say limit liquid calories. Okay, so similar to processed foods, liquid calories are less filling, so they leave you hungrier, craving more. They're very easy to overconsume. A lot of times I've seen this with clients in the past where they're struggling to lose weight in the first couple of weeks that they're working with me, and we kind of go back to some of the fundamental assumptions that were made coming out of our initial consultation. Say, are we tracking everything we eat, tracking everything we drink? And they're like, wait a minute, tracking everything I drink? Yes, all calories that come in, let's take a look at that if we are tracking calories, right? And so what happens is a lot of times people forget that those drinks come packed sometimes with calories. And so some examples of where these liquid calories, these stealth calories are consumed, specialty coffees. Let's be honest. I mean, if you go to your modern coffee shop and get a latte, I mean, you're getting 400 to 600 calorie, drink, and you're calling it coffee because it's got an espresso shot in it, right? So specialty coffees, be very careful about that. I recommend if you don't like black, learn to like black or switch to cold brew. There's a lot of cool options. Even from, Starbucks, the evil empire, they have like a vanilla sweet cream cold brew that I go and I get that. If I'm ever at a Starbucks, I'll get that and I'll just ask for half the cream. And by the way, it's not that many calories even if you get all the cream in there. But there's cold brew options that even have some flavorings that you can look at. And most places these days have calories, so you can take a look at that. But specialty coffee is number 1. That's a huge one. People, I think, do not understand how much caloric load is packed into kind of the average specialty coffee. Number 2 is alcohol. Keep in mind that alcohol has 7 calories per gram. And we could do a whole nother episode on this. I enjoy alcohol from time to time. I have greatly reduced my frequency, even somewhat recently. There are many reasons why alcohol, of course, contributes to overconsumption. 1, it comes with calories itself. 2, we know it minimizes your inhibitions. People tend to eat more after and during calorie intake. There's also other reasons why this can affect your metabolism, why it can affect your overall consumption. It slows down protein synthesis. Keep in mind that also when alcohol enters your system, it's a toxin. And so what your body does is it basically redistributes its resources to begin dealing with a toxic invader, really. And so your body is more likely to store fat if you are consuming alcohol, because your body is diverting some of those metabolic resources to getting rid of this enemy, right? And so again, I'm not anti-drinking. I enjoy whiskey. I enjoy good craft beer. But we have to be practical about what this means. It also affects your sleep. And we've seen people that are underslept have lower metabolism, so their body naturally burns fewer calories. Alcohol has vast implications on sleep quality. So for all those reasons, this is not an anti-alcohol podcast, not an anti-alcohol point, but just limiting the amount of that alcohol is huge. It can be absolutely huge in terms of tilting the scale, pun intended, into a negative energy balance. So specialty coffees, alcohol, juices, sodas, sports drinks, et cetera, these are places that these kind of stealth calories can be found. So you've just got to really limit your liquid calories, stick to low or non-calorie drinks. Water is your best friend, black coffee, cold brew. Those are some of your best friends in this area. So that's number 5 for me. Any thoughts on that? Apart from my random alcohol rant.
Or black coffee with a splash of milk. I do that. So you don't need. There you go.
Yeah, I've beaten my taste buds into submission. I'm drinking. If you're on YouTube and you see me sipping right now, I'm just drinking black coffee over ice. So, but I get that's not for everyone. So.
All right. So number 6.
Number 6 is pretty simple. Limit snacking. Now, I'm not opposed to snacking. I'm a big fan of snacking, especially when that comes in the form of like my mid-morning snack is a plate of half fruit and half veggies, right? So I made, like, to our earlier point, I don't do veggies really during my breakfast, but my mid-morning snack is one of those 8 or 9-inch plates. I do half of it of my berry of choice, and then I do the other half with 1 or 2 of my favorite veggies, something like baby carrots, bell peppers, et cetera, et cetera. And so, so I'm not opposed to snacking. However, I have seen the power in people just saying, all right, for this season, I'm trying to lose some weight. I'm just going to stick to 3 really proper square meals, right? And cutting out some of that snacking. And we definitely want to cut out. So what I described is really a purposeful snack. What we really want to cut out is mindless snacking, right? And we see this a lot in the office environment. I'm back in an office environment 2 days a week with my full-time job. So I've seen the vending machine in the kitchen. It's all trash, right? Like, and so it's like, now could I have those things in context? Sure, I can have those. I can have my fun foods, but am I eating those every single day, morning, noon, after, no. Right. And so the limiting the mindless snacking. So again, there's nothing wrong, but prioritizing the meals can be one way for some people to establish that negative energy balance without having to count calories. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think snacking can increase your mindless eating, like you just said, as far as you're not necessarily hungry. We're just more like bored at work. So we go to the vending machine, or stressed at work. We go to the vending machine, or tired at night. We go to the pantry. So those are the things about the snacking. If you're actually really hungry, you actually really need protein and fiber. So yeah.
And again, it's like maybe snacking is your thing, but switching that snack to, again, like baby carrots and bell peppers or strawberries. I mean, strawberries are miraculous. Blueberries, miraculous in terms of their nutrient punch, right? And they fill you up and they're packed with fiber. And so you're right. Whether it's a protein snack, low calorie protein snack, and or fiber, it's just going to change your world. So that's number 6.
Great. And number 7.
Number 7, this is kind of in keeping with sort of that mindfulness. I would say eat slowly. Now, this may seem a little weird. It may seem kind of nebulous, like just slowing down. And it's not necessarily that changes the calories of what you're going to eat. But what we've seen is that it takes about 20 to 30 minutes-ish for your body to begin signaling to the brain that it's full, that it's satisfied. Okay. Now, look, I was in the military. I learned how to eat an entire meal in less than 3 minutes. Okay. I know what it's like to shove it down, but that was boot camp and we weren't given anything else, right? That was it. Like, they controlled everything. We were running around like crazy. So I've been on the extreme of how fast we eat. But I got to say, it's also challenging sometimes to extend that time, because we've gotten into this place where we can consume meals pretty quick as Americans for a lot of reasons. And so all that's to say is to slow down, right? And we have a lot of techniques that we use when I'm dealing with clients in terms of mindful eating is, like we talked about, drink a glass of water before the meal, take a bite, put that bite in your mouth, put your utensil down in between each bite. And this is where I think it actually heightens your appreciation for food. Spend time just chewing thoroughly. Like, enjoy the flavors, enjoy the textures, enjoy the temperatures, right? These varying elements of food. This is not about like, I'm trying to lose weight, therefore I need to stop liking food. No, this can actually heighten your appreciation for food in the process, is by slowing down. Take another sip of water in between. Take 20 to 30 minutes to consume that whole meal so that your body registers that it's maybe not full, because that could be another thing, is not wanting to eat till you're full, but eating until you're, satiated or satisfied. So eating slower can register and signal to your brain that it's fuller sooner if you last that long, and therefore consuming fewer calories over time. And I think I kind of blended into my number 8, but eating slowly is a big piece.
Right. Definitely. Number 8.
Yeah, so I kind of went into this. I got ahead of myself, but eating mindfully in general is really key. And so again, so if we're eating slowly, let's assume we're now going to spend 20 or 30 minutes. What are some techniques within that at any given meal? And the first one would really be eliminating distraction. I'm very guilty of this in the sense that I'm on my phone a lot. I have to be for work in a certain respect, but at the same time, I could also button that up a little bit. So eliminating that distraction, sitting quietly at the table with a meal is possible, friends. Like, you don't have to have TV on. You don't have to have radio on. You don't have to have a podcast on. You don't have to be doom scrolling on social media. You can take 20 to 30 minutes off social media. Okay. Even reading is a form of mindless eating. Okay. So, and then again, some of the things that I mentioned in number 7 are also applied here is taking one bite at a time, putting your utensil down in between bites, chewing each bite slowly and thoroughly, enjoying all those flavors and textures and temperatures, eating until your body is satisfied. Think about, this is what I think is really a nutrition Jedi mind trick, is being able to learn when your body is 80% full, right? As opposed to completely full. And you're starting to border on uncomfortable, right? In America, a lot of times we grew up in a generation that's like, finish your plate, right? Like eat everything. There's kids in other countries that aren't as lucky as you. Therefore you finish everything. And if you don't, dad will do it. And so we've seen this modeled, a lot, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with eating until you're not necessarily full, but you're no longer hungry either. And then maybe you pack that up, put it into a little container, throw it in the fridge and have it later. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying you start wasting food, but it being okay with eating until you're 80, 85% full as opposed to 100% completely full is a Jedi mind trick. And so again, none of these techniques equal weight loss unless you're in a negative energy balance. However, eating more mindfully, we've seen, is one way that generally helps people establish a negative energy balance.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. All right. And I guess the only thing I would add to that is I think that's great. Having that little bit of that extra leftovers you can combine those and make another meal for lunch the next day. So decrease cooking.
I've seen you do this too. Like I've seen, obviously we spend time together. We're family, even though we're in different states. And I mean, you're in the best sense, like you're religious about it. Like we pack everything up, put it back in. We'll see that thing for breakfast the next morning. I'm like, that's dinner for breakfast. A lot of people are like, ooh, breakfast for dinner. I'm like, go to Danielle's house. You'll see dinner for breakfast, So just keep rolling that food through. It's still good food, right? We need to get out of the bounds of like, well, breakfast always has to look like that. No, I mean, consume good food, irrespective of, the first time you had it or when you made it,
Yeah. All right. So number 9.
So here, this one's not a trick, right? I would say if you're like, I don't want to count calories, just know that keeping a food log, you don't have to keep calories, just keeping a food log, just writing down the food that you ate and maybe even sort of general proportions, though, if that freaks you out, it's okay. Just writing down the foods that you eat throughout the day, and don't act like this is cumbersome. Like if you have 20 minutes to eat, you can write down the 3 things you ate in that meal, right? So I'm not going to let you off the hook like, well, I don't have time to write something down. Yes, you do. If you have time to eat, you have time to write down what you're eating, okay? Instead of scrolling through your phone, just write it down on a note in your phone, all right? So let's all be adults about this. But we've seen this in research that just keeping a food log is an effective real-world strategy for improving what we call dietary adherence. Now, some people say, well, what's magic about that? Watch what happens when you write down what you eat. I challenge you. In fact, I did an episode on this, which is if you don't know where to start eating better, this is what I recommend you do. You take 3 or 4 days, and that needs to include a weekend. Write down everything you eat. And I bet you don't need us to tell you one thing you could probably change. Right? And you'll be surprised that if you have to write down that you had 3 pieces of cheesecake, you'll be surprised that just writing it down might cause you to only eat 1, right? Because you're like, shoot, I have to write that down? Or I have to write down that I went to Burger King and got 2 Whopper, whatever they sell at Burger King, I don't know, right? And 3 things of like just writing it down, okay? So even if you don't track calories, simply writing down the food you eat can help you start to make more conscious, better decisions. And again, if that causes you to make some of those more nutrient dense choices, chances are you're going to start consuming fewer calories overall. So whether it's a piece of paper, a journal, a note on your phone, texting it to an accountability friend, whatever it is, actually physically, literally writing down what you eat, even if you're not counting calories, can be a very effective strategy for weight loss without counting calories.
I like it. You can also see what's missing. I like to focus on the positive of that. So we're not just looking back at that and being like, oh, I got to get rid of the sweets.
Great point.
Soda. I got to get rid of this. But thinking about, oh, wow, I didn't eat any fruit today or any vegetables. So
That's huge.
Yeah, what's the positive of it? You can look back and say, oh, I need to add these things. What do I need to add?
That's a good point.
All right. So number 10.
Number 10. All right. Oh, and then I'm going to have a bonus one. Let's do a bonus one. We're going to give you 11. So here's number 10. I'm going to do this on the fly. If you're curious about foods and you're curious about kind of general food framework, I would say go back and listen to our episode, the last episode before this one, which is, do we recommend any diet? Right? In that, spoiler alert, we talk about the Mediterranean diet. Okay. So what we have seen is that within the Mediterranean style or way of eating or lifestyle, or it's really not a diet because it doesn't restrict anything. It's a lifestyle. It's a food framework, if you will. Eating more of a Mediterranean style will incorporate a lot of these, most specifically these really nutrient dense whole natural foods that tend to cause people to consume fewer calories. So number 10, I would say, is go back, listen to our last episode. The title of it is, is there any diet we recommend? But again, spoiler alert, in there, we talk about the power of the Mediterranean diet and what that is. And so if you are looking for some sort of system to follow or framework that's very clear, we teach the 4 pillars of nutrition. But if you're looking for something out there that has a ton of literature, a ton of articles, tons of websites are carrying Mediterranean recipes and breakfast and lunch and dinner and doing 30 days Mediterranean, right? We would say that is a really great starting place, is the Mediterranean diet. So maybe number 10, again, I'm doing this on the fly. Number 10 is consider eating or consider dabbling or having fun or learning about more of a Mediterranean style eating, and see what that does in terms of your overall calorie intake. So that was a quick random one. So maybe lots of thoughts, maybe none, but Danielle, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think our 4 pillars are basically the Mediterranean style of eating. But yes, I agree. If you want more information, I did talk about that in the podcast of where to go with that. And we are hopefully going to start a podcast series on practical how to incorporate these foods, what these foods are, how to incorporate them practically in your life. So
very cool.
Yep. What is number 11?
11 now. So bonus, congrats. You stuck around to the end. If you're still listening, you're a hero. I would say with caution, I would say increasing activity. Now, I'm a big fitness guy, love fitness, love strength training, love playing soccer, love doing a lot of stuff. I've played a lot of sports. And so I love fitness. What I don't want to do is create an unhealthy relationship with fitness. I do not want to create a relationship that says, I ate this, therefore I must go do that. All right. I never want fitness to be a response at the gym to what you've done at the table. Okay. And so I think that creates an unhealthy relationship. However, there are 2 sides to the energy balance equation. And so while basically everything up until now has been about, even though you may be eating more food because it's lower calories, it has been in some way about, of course, the intake side of things, right? Reducing your calorie intake, because if you're not losing weight, you're consuming more calories than you're expending. That's not a judgment. That's not a theory. It's not a philosophy. It's thermodynamics. Okay. So there's 2 sides to this. So as you start to grapple with your intake and what natural habits can you instill throughout your day to consume a more appropriate level of calories, keep in mind that you want to also consider the other side of the equation, which is your energy expenditure, your output. How many calories are you burning? Okay. And so while all the tips up till now have really been about intake, this one is about expenditure. So when it comes to calories burned, or exercise, I should say, activity, because there's lots of ways your body burns calories, right? Thermic effect of food, natural metabolic processes, your basal metabolic rate, that stuff happens irrespective of activity. But when it comes to just the activity, there's generally 2 buckets. Number 1 is called NEAT, N-E-A-T. That stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That is anything you do that is not purposed exercise, really, okay? The other one is EAT, E-A-T, and that is exercise activity thermogenesis, okay? And so what I would say is that, well, real quick. So with NEAT, it's the energy expended for everything we do that is not sleeping, eating, or sports-like exercise. So the non-exercise activity thermogenesis is everything we do that's not sleeping, eating, or your basal metabolic rate, or participating in sport-like exercise. So some examples of this could be just ranges from, walking, not like on a purpose brisk walk, like you're listening to a podcast and walking, but it's just you're walking to, your car, walking to the grocery store, you're walking to and from your car at work or to your kid's baseball game, right? It's typing, by the way. Typing is neat. Fidgeting is neat. Performing yard work is neat. All these things are non-exercise activity thermogenesis. There's some fascinating studies. I won't go into it. There's some fascinating that talks about personality types and people that fidget and how they are generally lean throughout their life. They generally have a natural inclination toward non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Now, that doesn't mean go start tapping your foot all day long at a meeting to be annoying. That doesn't really work because now that's purposed. That becomes actually more exercise. However, non-exercise activity thermogenesis is a big part of that. And then there's exercise activity thermogenesis is various forms of exercise And it includes, but of course it's not limited to, things like strength training, which I'm a huge proponent of, cardiovascular training, so jogging, biking, hiking, swimming, etc. Sport-specific training, actually playing sports. I'm 41, about to be 42. I still play in a competitive soccer league and a pickup indoor league. Like, I'm still out there playing in a somewhat competitive sport, getting my exercise there. I mean, it's stretching, it's stability training, plyometrics, group fitness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So all that's to say, my biggest counsel would be, find the things you enjoy with your activity. Don't say, well, I want to lose weight, so I need to start running 5 miles a day. I always tell people, do you like running? No, I hate it, but I need to lose weight. Then don't do it. Don't do it. Now, if you come to me and say, oh, I want to run 5 miles a day. Do you like running? I love running. Great. Do that. But if you hate it, don't do it. Find the things that you enjoy. Again, I like walking. I like strength training. I like playing soccer. That's kind of my cocktail, right? And so find what you like. Is that riding a bike? Is that swimming? Danielle, your whole family's crazy swimmers, right? You guys are fish, right? You love that. You guys swim consistently. So all that's to say, all that said and done, increasing your activity in a healthy way, not in a way that is responsive to food, right? But in a way that is proactive and out of enjoyment, finding the things that you could do. The way I say it is, if you could do it until you're 90, do that. But if you can't see yourself doing that until you're 90, don't spend any time forcing yourself trying, right? Find what you love to. If I could be 90 and still playing soccer, I would do it. Now, we'll see or not if that happens. But suffice it to say, increasing activity, because again, it's the other side of the energy balance equation, but just be mindful and find a way that is sustainable, long lasting, creates happiness and enjoyment in your life, not something that's a burden that you have to do because you're trying to lose weight. So thoughts on that? That was kind of a lot to wrap us up, but any thoughts on that?
No,
Danielle?
that's perfect. I love it. Gotta like what you do. So
absolutely. So all that said and done, that's 11, turned out to be 11. 11 tips that we think we hope are really practical. So maybe I'll just do a flyby just for a reminder, or just at the end. Number 1, include protein in every meal. Number 2, include veggies in every meal, even breakfast, if that's a little weird. Number 3, increase your water intake. Number 4, limit your processed foods. Number 5, limit liquid calories. Number 6, limit snacking, or prefer more mindful snacks, right? Number 7, eat slowly. Number 8, eat mindfully. Number 9, keep a food log. Just jot down the food that you eat. Number 10, consider dabbling in the Mediterranean style of eating, or our 4 pillars, which again are: number 1, lean meat, seafood, and dairy. Number 2, fruits and veggies. Number 3, whole grains. Number 4, nuts and seeds. Okay. And number 11, increase your activity. And so now let me say it again at the very end of this. You could do all of these things. And if you're not losing weight, it's because you have not established a negative energy balance. And if you're at that point where you're trying some of these things and you're working and you're making better food choices and you're going for walks and the weight's not coming off, I would say reach out to us. I would love to help walk through some of the details of what that looks like and find the optimizations that you need to unlock some of the success. And so if we can help in any way along this journey, I hope this podcast has been helpful. But if you need further clarification, you need further contextualization for your exact scenario, some of your considerations, your health considerations, your activity considerations, your food considerations, definitely reach out and let us know. You can just go to imagonutrition.com and there's a big contact us button in the upper right corner. You can tap that, send us a note, and we'd love to hear from you. So with all that said and done, as I said, if this has been helpful, we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, share it with a friend. If you're on social media, be sure to follow us on your favorite social media platform. We are at Imago Nutrition. That's IMAGO Nutrition. And as always, I'd like to thank Happy Pill, the band, for our theme song, Thinkin Bout Food. We'll see you.